African civilizational architecture. Civilizations don't disappear because they lack knowledge. They disappear when the mechanisms that carry knowledge across rupture are broken, discredited, or erased. African civilizations understood this long before the catastrophic ruptures of enslavement and colonialism arrived. They designed knowledge systems that assumed disruption, not stability. They built for portability, knowledge that moved with bodies, not buildings. They built for redundancy, multiple carriers, multiple forms. They built for adaptability, systems that could absorb new materials, languages, and contexts without losing core structure. What they created was architectural, intentional, engineered for survival. This architecture is called the Bridgeworks. Why redundancy matters. African societies understood that single-point storage is catastrophic risk. A library can burn, a specialist can die, a monument can be toppled, a language can be banned. If knowledge lives in only one form, one place, one person, it dies when that carrier is destroyed. So they distributed knowledge across multiple reinforcing systems. Story could be remembered and retold even when texts were destroyed. Bodies could carry rhythm and gesture even when instruments were banned. Symbols could be inscribed on objects, skin, and ground even when writing was forbidden. Land held memory in sacred sites even when archives were looted. Objects carried proof of continuity even when documentation was lost. This wasn't paranoia. This was realism. This was information security at civilizational scale. And when the unforeseeable arrived, enslavement, forced migration, cultural suppression, linguistic fragmentation, archival destruction, the architecture proved its worth. Not because it was perfect, but because it was redundant. The 12 functions. The Bridgeworks operates through 12 interdependent functions, organized into 4 bands. Band 1, Story into Breath. This is origination and transmission. Fable creates instruction, knowledge encoded in narrative form that can travel where direct record cannot. Griot provides custodianship, trained specialists whose authority derived from accuracy, continuity, and communal verification. Score imprints knowledge into the body through rhythm, repetition, and pattern, allowing it to survive migration and exile without dependence on a single carrier. Band 2, Encoding and Proof. This is preservation and authority. Spell fixes meaning through performative utterance, incantation and ritual that cannot be freely altered without consequence. Script establishes inscription through written systems like Nsibidi, Vai, and the manuscript traditions of Timbuktu. Sigil compresses meaning into visual form, cosmograms and symbols that function as portable archives. Memorabilia anchors memory in matter, objects, bronzes, architecture that embody knowledge physically. Band 3, Civilisational Sciences. This is application and survival. Soil names ecological intelligence, land management and agricultural knowledge embedded within cosmology. Numbers represent applied mathematics, fractal geometries, accounting systems, and reasoning that governed construction and governance. Time refers to chronometric systems, cyclical calendars that coordinated agriculture, ritual, and social order with precision. Technologica names material innovation, metallurgy, architecture, and engineering rooted in local environments. Band 4, Renewal and Future. This is regeneration. Seed holds stored futurity, the principle through which knowledge, life, and possibility are carried forward beyond the present moment. Seed ensures that what is cultivated gets replanted, what is remembered gets retold. It closes the circle not as an ending, but as a return. How it actually worked. The architecture is circular, not linear. Knowledge doesn't advance along a single path. It circulates. The primary flow moves clockwise. Fable to griot, to score, to spell, to script, to sigil, to memorabilia, to soil, to numbers, to time, to technologica, to seed. And then seed returns to fable. Stored future becomes instruction again. But the system is also recursive. Knowledge can re-enter at multiple points. Score informs spell, as rhythm structures ritual. Memorabilia returns knowledge to story by enabling retelling through object and site. Soil renews seed, anchoring futurity in ecology. These internal loops mean that even if part of the circle is broken, knowledge can re-establish itself through another path. This explains why African cultural practices survived when everything else was destroyed. When griotic lineages were disrupted, rhythm persisted. When scripts were suppressed, symbols endured. When objects were looted, stories remained. When land was alienated, bodies carried the knowledge forward. The redundancy was intentional. African societies explicitly designed for this. The evidence. We know this wasn't accidental because the design principles are documented. Griotic training required decades and distributed knowledge across multiple specialists, not needed unless engineering for continuity. Ifa divination remained oral even when writing was available because, as practitioners stated, what is written can be destroyed. Nsibidi script was encrypted by design to protect knowledge from hostile outsiders. Congo cosmograms were made portable because what can be built can be destroyed. Rhythm was embodied because knowledge in the body cannot be taken. These were engineering decisions, conscious choices about how to preserve knowledge under threat. Degree, what this changes. The Bridgeworks changes how African history is understood. It shifts the discussion from content to structure, from fragments to systems, from loss to design. Much of what has been described as disappearance or absence is actually the result of broken transmission mechanisms. What failed wasn't knowledge itself, but the conditions that allowed it to circulate. This matters for African history because it restores authorship. African civilizations are no longer positioned as passive carriers of belief, but as designers of complete epistemological systems. Their myths become infrastructural. Their sciences become legible. Their technologies regain continuity. It matters for the African diaspora because it explains persistence. When enslaved Africans carried rhythm across the Atlantic, they weren't just preserving culture. They were operating knowledge systems designed exactly for that kind of rupture. Blues, jazz, hip-hop, call and response, drumming patterns. These aren't vague cultural memory. They're score functioning as intended. It matters for scholarship because it provides method. Instead of extracting African material into foreign frameworks or reducing it to folklore, the Bridgeworks offers a way to see coherence where fragmentation has been assumed. And it matters for the future because it reframes continuity as a design problem. In a world facing ecological collapse, data loss, and cultural rupture, the Bridgeworks offers a model for resilient knowledge systems that prioritize redundancy, regeneration, and adaptability over permanence alone. Not recovery, clarification. This isn't a recovery project. This isn't about nostalgia or identity politics. This is clarification of how civilizations survive catastrophic disruption. African societies didn't accidentally preserve knowledge. They engineered systems capable of withstanding the unforeseeable. When enslavement tried to sever African peoples from their pasts entirely, the architecture held. Not intact, but functional. Because it had been designed for rupture from the beginning. The Bridgeworks names that design. It describes how knowledge moved through story, body, symbol, land, number, object, and time. It shows that what endured did so not by luck, but by architecture. The circle closes where it began. Seed returns to fable. Knowledge re-enters the system not as relic, but as future instruction. The Bridgeworks stands as civilisational architecture, and it's still working.